All right, kids, here we go. So I want to show you something really special. This is quite rare, which is sort of interesting. This is a vinyl LP of the Canadian cast recording of the Phantom of the Opera, the highlights recording. This is the only official recording that was ever made of the Canadian cast. And this is the one that, for those of you that have a copy of it, would probably be the one that you would know with Colm Wilkinson. However, you probably have this on a CD, as did most of us growing up. So what is so interesting about it being on vinyl, and why is it so rare? And there aren't a lot of people that have these. I've seen the odd picture on the internet, so I thought I would make a video about it since I have one. So in order to answer that, I think we need to go into sort of the historical context of Canada and Toronto circa 1989-1990. So the Canadian production of Phantom opened in Toronto in September of 1989, meaning that this album release would have been probably around 1990. And it's interesting because vinyl was sort of on its way out a little bit at the time, but not everybody could afford a CD player yet. I mean, we didn't get our CD player when I was a kid until probably around 1992, but it was sort of in that interesting period that pretty much everybody were using cassettes at that point. There was some vinyl work being done. I mean, everybody had a record player still probably then, and CDs not everybody could afford yet. But chances are, if you could afford tickets to the Phantom of the Opera in Toronto, you either lived in Toronto or you had more money than that and you could afford to go to Toronto if you didn't want to go all the way to New York to see it, much less go to England. And so it's sort of an interesting historical tidbit, because chances are, again, if you were able to afford that kind of money to go and see the show, which is where you would probably have to get the LP anyway, because even in Ottawa, it wasn't that common for the CD or the cassette that I recall. You were pretty much going to have one of these if you were able to afford to go to the show. And in Toronto, if you had that kind of money, you were either upper middle class, sort of fairly wealthy, in which case you probably already had a CD player, or you were a wannabe middle class, and I'm looking at you, Lee's side, where, everybody in Lee's side wants to pretend that they have more money than they do, which is why everybody has the same BMW, and everybody has the same house, and everybody maxes out their credit cards. And so those are the people in Toronto that would also probably wind up going to get tickets that they probably couldn't really afford for the Phantom of the Opera. And so what does all that have to do with this? Well, it means that because most of the people that would be able to access the recording and be able to go and see the show could probably afford a CD player at that time, and may or may not have really been using vinyl, that not a lot of these vinyls would have been made, right? Because most of them would have been either CDs or cassettes. And the cassettes, you can find those a dime a dozen on eBay, Kijiji, wherever. So the Canadian cast recording is now somewhat known because it's unique. And the other thing that's unique about it is the artwork. So that's sort of my theory on the sort of vinyl. And consequently, as I say, there wouldn't have been as many made up. You were either going to get it on CD, and I didn't get our family, when I was a kid, we didn't get our first CD player until I think 1992, and I think it was like $1,200, and it was a set top, and it basically went in with all the other stereo system in the rack, and it was not to be touched. You didn't really start to see Discmans and things like that until maybe 95, 96, and even then they cost a mint. So it was sort of this interesting period between vinyl kind of being on its way out and CDs being on their way in, but not everybody could afford it. So you kind of had to have an LP pressing for vinyl so that people could afford to get the recording, but there wouldn't be as many people that would, necessarily be using vinyl to listen to their music. So my guess is they made a whole bunch of versions on cassette, which is why they're everywhere. But Very, very few with vinyl, because not too many people probably would have in 1990 been seeking out new music on vinyl, and CDs were still very expensive. And because there's nothing on the internet really showing any of this stuff other than a few pictures, and I have one here. And what's really interesting is this is sealed. So this has never been opened. So I am actually going to completely horrify the internet, and I'm going to open it because I'm not going to sell it. I've been looking for it. Get off my fucking fingers. So this has probably been sitting in somebody's basement for 30 years. So we'll see how the artwork is if my fat, stubby jiu-jitsu fingers can open this this package here. I'm not going to edit this. I'm doing this sort of in real time. So we'll see how because I'm going to put this in a frame and I'm going to put it on my wall. And I'm probably not going to play it either, because I believe that the Canadian recording was recorded at, I think it was Sounds Interchange or Manta Sound, which I believe was the same studio, just different name. And my music director here at Skycron, John Stroll, another interesting bit of Canadiana. A lot of the raccoons cartoon, the raccoons in the 1980s, a lot of the soundtrack was mastered there. So this is now out of the wrap, and it's kind of nice to be able to see the artwork. Pretty much the same as the CD, just sort of aligned differently. So you can see it. I'll get that a little close to the camera. It's sort of in a small room, and of course it doesn't want to focus, but you get the idea. So this is now out of the, it's exactly the same as the CD. But what I am interested in taking a look at is the actual disc, the actual LP itself. So again, it's very much the same. Layout's a little different. You can see, Live End. Well, you've heard of Ernest Goes to Jail. Well, I guess Garth Drabinsky decided to follow that and do the producers in real life. But anyway, that is neither here nor there. So, I don't know if this is, you can sort of see it here. And what I'm really interested to see is the actual, so this has never been opened. I just opened it and ruined everything. So let's get the LP out here. Here we go. And here we go. Here is the, come on, focus, damn it. Here is the original Canadian cast recording of the Phantom of the Opera on LP. So this would have been, does it say, yeah, 1990. And then just being careful here. And then here is the other side. Isn't that neat? So while I'm showing this to you, fun fact, I had to wait until 1996 to, no, sorry, was it 96 or 98? 90, fuck, I don't remember. It was either 96 or 90. I think it was 90. Yeah, it was 98. So I saw it on November 14th, 1998 at the Pantages Theatre in Toronto. I believe it's called the Ed Mirvish Theatre now. And I saw the 2 p.m. matinee. And what was really cool is my English teacher at the time, his name was Mr. Godfrey, which I guess now that I'm allegedly an adult, I can call him Craig Godfrey now. And he knew I was interested in the show at the time. And he was he actually, while I put this away, I'll tell you this story. One of his friends who lived in Kingston, Ontario, another very interesting city, I put it in the wrong way, what was really interesting about that is he was a volunteer member of, I believe, the Kingston Choristers. And David Rogers, who played Raoul in the Toronto production, and at the time, I believe he was a swing in Toronto, and then he joined the Canadian touring production, and then eventually he became the permanent Raoul in the Toronto production. So Mr. Godfrey's friend was David Rogers' mom. And I'm obviously having some difficulty putting this back in here. And when I went to see Phantom, they didn't tell me, Mr. Godfrey didn't tell me that he'd already told David's mother, who he was with the Kingston Choristers with, and I got to go backstage. So I got to see the mirror, and I got to see the boat. And the really cool thing, which I really regret because it's going to look like I'm an internet liar, the person that I was with, that drove me down with my friend to see Phantom, there was a picture taken, but I cannot track down the picture. There was a remote, so I actually got to lower the chandelier on the remote, so I would have been probably about 12 at the time. So that was very cool. I'm still trying to find that picture, the person that took the picture, and I've been looking for that for the better part of 10, 15 years. But you know what? I found this, so there may be hope for me yet. So anyway, for those of you that might have been interested in this LP, now you know what it looks like. One that's been taken right out of the wrap and is better than a 20-year-old fuzzy internet scan of dubious origin. So absolutely nothing to do with my TV work, nothing to do with Go Nitro, nothing to do with anything. Just kind of a fun thing that I thought would be cool to basically do a little video on it. And if you enjoyed this or anything else, please do hit subscribe. Have a good one.